Now that both the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5 are publicly available across the world, the question of remastered, remade, and backwards compatible games becomes more and more of a common topic when it comes to games like Payday 2. And over the last month or so, I've been getting a lot of comments from people asking me if I think there'll be a new version of Payday 2 that will re-release on the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5. In this video, I'm going to break down the reasons for and against it, and then come to my final conclusion as to whether I think Payday 2 should get a remaster on next-gen consoles. So without any further ado, my name is RedArcherLive, welcome back to the channel, and today, let's talk about the next-gen versions of Payday 2 and whether they should happen or not. Roll the intro. So quite simply, I want to get into a few different reasons as to why you might be able to argue for and against the release of Payday 2 on these next-gen consoles. So I've got 3 key points that are for it, and for each one I've got a counter-argument, and then at the end, I'll sum up all my thoughts with my final conclusion. So let's look at our first argument of the 3, fan attention. It could be argued that with Payday 3 still 2 to 3 years away from release at the very least, that keeping players interested in the Payday franchise is a very important thing for Overkill Software. On PC, this is being done continuously with the release of the Silk Road DLCs and whatever DLC comes next in 2021, as well as the free updates they've received this year, including the Holdout Overhaul, the Anniversary Update, and additionally the free content within Update 200, including Infamy 3.0. And with the PC player count being as high as it is, it's safe to say that PC Payday 2 is in a very comfortable spot right now, but as for console, not so much. It's been nearly 12 months since Xbox One and PlayStation 4 saw an update for the game. You could count the 1 or 2 updates we've had this year, although you shouldn't really, as they've only fixed the occasional bug and tweaked a few game settings to match up with the removal of Scarface from the store. And as more time goes by, we're getting more and more DLCs releasing, and consoles just aren't seeing any of it, and so their attention in the franchise is starting to wane down a bit. As a lot of you know, I started off by just doing console videos for Payday 2 before I branched out to cover PC and console, and I gotta tell you, I don't play Xbox One Payday 2 nearly as much as I'd like to these days. And it's for the same reason as a lot of you guys, that there's no content coming out, so why bother playing it? Because after a while, it gets a bit boring if nothing new's being added. So to keep console players invested in the franchise, it'd be a very good idea potentially to re-release Payday 2 on Xbox Series X and PS5. My counter-argument to this point, quite simply though, is that via backwards compatibility, I would expect that Payday 2's Crime Wave Edition will be available on both the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, unless someone in the comments can tell me otherwise. It's been a very important thing in the release of these consoles that backwards compatibility is a strong feature to ensure that the transition between the last gen and current gen consoles is a lot smoother than it might have been in the last transition from the Xbox 360 to the Xbox One and so on. I am completely confident that both Sony and Microsoft have made it very clear in their console pitches that their devices will now be able to run most of the old games from the previous generation, as well as a handful of ones that were already previously backwards compatible on the last gen consoles. Which means you can play Payday 2 already as it is on the Xbox Series X and PS5. So really, if you want to keep playing it, you have already got a way to do it. It's just that we don't have as much content available for the game, which is our second point of contention. The second reason as to why Payday 2 could be deserving of a remaster on the next-gen consoles, quite simply, is due to the lack of content that consoles have received in the last year, and really beyond that, even while it was still getting updates. For those of you who don't play on console like myself and like a lot of other people, the console versions have not really had a lot of attention in 2020. The last major content update that added new things to the game came in December 2019, bringing you Brooklyn Bank, the Diamond Heist, and a few other bits and bobs. In 2020, there's been a couple of little mini updates, but they've only fixed bugs or tweaked things, so in terms of actual hard content, Xbox One and PlayStation 4 has not seen anything. As a lot of you might know out there, I started off by just doing console videos for Payday 2, doing all the news updates, talking about what was coming out, what content could be next, and I still do those videos. It's just not as easy to do when, you know, there hasn't been anything for the last year. But the point being is that on console and PC, right now, there's loads happening on PC and nothing's happening on console. There's no content releasing, and it was confirmed last year by Mikhail Nermak, the now former CEO of Starbreeze. That feels weird saying, but he said up front that it was unlikely Xbox One and PS4 would see any more updates. It's not guaranteed. They may get one down the line, but they will not guarantee any further that more content will be coming to the game. And so far, that's been the case. We've not had a single update, and we don't know if any more will be coming in the future. And so people are arguing that, well, if they re-release the game on Xbox Series X and PS5, this is their chance to get it right, to put all the content in that PC players have and console players never got to touch on the new console with the better functionality, the better hardware. Surely Payday 2 will be as strong as it possibly could be on consoles if they remastered it and re-released it. Well, there's a few issues with that point, and here are my disagreements with that potential point. First First off, it is on the same engine. The fact that the consoles have better functionality, better loading times, none of that even comes into question. At the end of the day, Payday 2 is still built on the same trashy engine that just does not allow for porting content easily between platforms. It's an issue I've talked about in previous videos before, but literally when they make content on consoles, they can't just port it from PC. They literally have to rebuild it from the ground up to get it in line with PC. So however long it takes on PC, it takes the same amount of time to build from the ground up on consoles, and that's not accounting for all the bugs that console has. So they would literally have to start from scratch and make the whole game from the beginning, which is not an easy task, and especially with the lack of staff they've got now, it's not a task they can afford to do. It would take a long time with the 30 to 40 Payday 2 devs there are, which are mainly really doing content for PC now, to actually even think about beginning to draft up a remake on a new generation console. It just doesn't seem feasible to me. Not to mention the amount of money it would cost to fund that update and the staff to make it, which leads me into my third and final point. It's argued that another reason that the remake could be made is to generate profit for Overkill, because as a lot of us know, the company needs as much money as it can get to make Payday 3. But the issue here is, games are not free to make, as I'm sure you're aware, because they need the funding for Payday 3, and Payday 2 being remade would not be a free effort. They would need to put a lot of money into that to build the game up, to pay the staff, to get it to work coherently. It's not a cheap effort. And if they wanted it to be anywhere near a competent version that a lot of console players want and deserve, it would cost so much money. More money than Overkill even have or know what to do with right now. Not to mention that a lot of console players will have just given up by now, which is sad, but that's the way it is. I don't think the profits that would make would even close to match up the cost it would make to actually put the game out there. I just don't think the prices would weigh up. I think really they've got to cut their losses at this point and not release another remake, because the way it would end up then is they put the game out, put loads of money into funding it, release it, not get a lot of sales, and then also not have the time or funding to actually add any more future content updates. So you'd have the Nintendo Switch version all over again. And I don't know about you guys, but I really do not want to see another Nintendo Switch version of Payday 2 being released for a different platform, because honestly, having that version released and get no content, it sucked. It sucked hard. So honestly, I just don't think they've got the money to afford this right now, and I just don't think it's a feasible effort. So let's combine all three of these points together. First off, getting more fan attention. Second off, being able to re-release the DLC they didn't actually put out on consoles to begin with and right the wrongs they made. And finally, being able to generate some money off it. These three factors all support making a Payday 2 re-release on Xbox Series X and PS5, but at the end of the day, as I've discussed, the counter-arguments of these points are too strong to actually ignore, to be honest with you. I think there are too many issues that counteract the good sides of this remake to make it worthwhile. And so, in conclusion, I do not believe Payday 2 should get a remaster or a remake or a re-release, or whatever you want to call it, on the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5. I just do not think it's a good idea. It'll cost too much money. There's a solid chance they won't be able to right the wrongs they did last time, because it's still the same game running on the same trashy engine, and it's just not something that everyone can count on. And so all I can suggest to console players right now, even though I still like to play console content on Payday 2, it's just not been as enjoyable recently as I've discussed, but the simple thing I've got to say is that if you want to keep playing Payday 2 on consoles, you'll have to just play the backwards compatible version from the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4, which I believe is already available to play. And again, as I said, if I'm wrong on that, feel free to correct me in the comment section down below. But that sums up my discussion on whether or not Payday 2 should get a re-release on the next-gen consoles. As I've said, I just don't think it's a good idea, but I've seen a lot of comments about it, and I figured it was good to address it around the launch of the new consoles over the last week or two. So either way, thank you all very much for watching the video. I hope you have enjoyed it, and if you have your thoughts, which I'm sure you do, on this topic, then you know what to do. Make sure you leave your thoughts about everything I've said in the comment section down below. If you haven't liked the video already, please make sure you do so, as it shows me you like this kind of content and would like to see more. And if you haven't clicked the subscribe button, make sure you do that too, because it's quick, it's free, and I'll always love you for doing so, and you'll never miss out on any news for Payday 2, Payday 3, or anything else Payday on all platforms. That's PC and consoles, as anything happens. Thanks very much, as always, to the people supporting me on Patreon, giving me a little bit more funding than just watching, liking, commenting, all that good stuff. If you'd like to join that little family of people, make sure you head over to the link in the description or on screen now, and pledge as little as £1 to help support the channel, keep things going, keep things running smoothly, and bring this little hobby of mine one step closer to becoming a possible solid job for me. I'll be back next weekend with a brand new video, and during the week for some more live streams over my Twitch page at twitch.tv/RedArcherLive. So until then, thank you all very much for watching. I will see you all next time. Until then, look after yourselves, stay safe, and I'll see you all soon.